Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast, reacting to Week 9, Commanders at Giants. Commanders take it 27-22. It's kind of similar to what I expected. I actually got the score for the Commanders right. I had it as 27-16. The Giants exceeded my expectations by a bit offensively, so shout out to them. Overall, their fourth loss in a row. They now go to Germany next week and play the Panthers, coming off a win, and then it's their bye week, so these next 2 weeks for the Giants, they won't be too exciting. I guess they can win next week. They're favored by 4.5 right now, so that could happen. But things are looking pretty ugly. 2-7. We've been here before. Another just boring offensive game to watch. I actually went back and looked at Daniel Jones' next-gen stats chart. No pass attempts over 25 yards today. The only one that came close was the 24-yard up-the-seam touchdown at the end to Theo Johnson. That was great to see. I feel like Daniel Jones has not made a throw like that since his rookie year. He did that to Golden Tate sometimes, but it's been a while. So anyway, we'll talk about the game, some big picture stuff, and leave a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. It's funny because I feel like the Giants had moments today where they didn't look that bad. They had their offensive drives where things were going well. They had that Neighbors drive where he had a bunch of catches and they were moving the ball. They moved the ball at a pretty decent rate today. I really can't be that mad at the offense. 22 is a decent amount. It's probably not going to win you most games, but the defense was probably the worst side of the ball in this game. The Giants actually beat them in possession time, which is surprising because I said this in the preview coming into this game. The Commanders were leading the NFL in time per possession offensively. So for the Giants to come out here and win time of possession, that was good to see. They ran one less offensive play. There was clearly a game plan to come out and run the ball a lot. I think it was 6 of their first 7 plays offensively were run plays. And of course, the one passing play was the Chris Hubbard got beat by Fowler, and there was the fumble. A weird play because honestly, if you watch it back, they blow the whistle after the ball leaves Jones's hands, and players are taught once you hear the whistle, stop playing. But then the play goes on, the Commanders recover it, and then they're just like, yeah, Commanders ball, nothing to see here. That was a weird play. So, look, once again, I've reached my breaking point. I really don't care if the Giants lose at this point. It kind of benefits them. And you look at the NFL landscape now, I've seen a lot of fans post a tankathon page where it pretty much tells you the current draft position. I think the Giants are pick 7 right now, but every team that is battling for that first pick has 2 wins. So the Giants are right there. Next week's a big game for tanking purposes. It really is. I think back to last year's game versus the Patriots. We called it the Drake May Bowl, and it seemed like the loser of that game was going to get Drake May, which ended up happening. So I feel like next week might be a little bit of that. It's like the Panthers might be a quarterback needy team. The Giants should definitely be a quarterback needy team. So whichever team loses that game in Germany next week, they might be the big winner in the end. So I kind of hope the Giants go out there and lose. And of course, I would rather root for wins. It'd feel better. I do the same thing with the Nets right now because they have all those first round picks, and it's better to try and tank for Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey. That's just the position we're in as fans. I feel like with fandoms, you have a life cycle. You have it's kind of like a roller coaster. You have times where your team is in it to win it. The Giants have had plenty of those years. From the time I became a fan in about 2005 up until about 2018 or so, they were always playing to win Super Bowls. And then we've had our rebuilding years. You draft Jones, you try to go all in, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They had their year in 2022 where it seemed like they were a year early, but as I said, there's going to be different peaks and valleys, and right now we're just at that point where we have to, not saying you have to root for losses, but this is just part of fandom. And I really hope that the Giants get a top 3 pick in April and then get a franchise quarterback, and then we can turn into what the Commanders have become. And I'll tell you, watching Jayden Daniels today, not to glaze too much, but watching Jayden Daniels today was really impressive. It's the guy didn't have the best stat line. He was 15 of 22 with 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rushing wise, he had 35 yards on the ground, 4.4 yards per carry. So it wasn't super impressive, but the way he controls the game, he is so poised for a young quarter. He's not crazy young. Of course, he was in college for a while, but for a rookie quarterback, he's just so calm and just under control. And just so many times where even that play right before the 2-minute warning, the crosser to Eckler, there was a bunch of guys in his face, and he just waits, he just backpedals a bit. We see Jordan Love do this sometimes, you just backpedal, you find the right guy, and Tyler Nubin should have made that tackle, but still, he just makes plays like that. And even that play was super impressive. I know the the analyst in the game, I don't know if it was Jonathan Vilma, whoever it was today, it was kind of like laughing because it was so impressive what Daniels did. Like Daniels was running to his left, and Brian Burns, who's a good athlete, he's not like a fat defensive end. Like Brian Burns is a good athlete. He was chasing him down, and he was trying to get the angle, and Jayden Daniels did get the angle and picked up like 8 yards on a run where he had no business getting like more than 2 yards. So he just does impressive things like that. And even that throw right before halftime where a lot of that was just Deonte Banks being a jackass, but even that throw was like a really good throw. Like he put it in the perfect spot. So what I'm getting at is I just hope we have a guy like that next year, whether it's Cam Ward or whoever. Like I don't care. I just want a guy like that where we can get behind him and be like, all right, we have our quarterback. This opens up a new 10 to 15 year window where kind of like Eli, when we had Eli and he was in his prime, you knew coming into every year, like, all right, if this team gets hot at the right time and just makes the playoffs, there's always a chance, right? So I just want something like that. And obviously with this current quarterback situation, it ain't going to happen. And speaking of the quarterback situation, I don't think Jones was that bad today. I think this is one of Jones's maybe top 4, top 5 games of this year. Overall, he was 20 of 26, 174 passing yards, which is not great, of course, from a yards per attempt standpoint. But 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have an interception, but it was pass interference. The guy dragged down Slayton before, so that's why it was an interception. He did have the fumble where I do pretty much, like, I know I'm a person that I hate when fans use the offensive line as the only excuse for sacks. I completely get it. But that one was pretty much squarely on Chris Hubbard. Like that, he got beat right away. Fowler hits Jones and he didn't feel it coming. Like he got there so quickly. I really can't even sit here and try to blame Jones for why that happened. So that's just your left tackle being shit. Like that just is what it is. But I think Jones, aside from not being aggressive, which maybe was like a game plan thing, I don't know what Brian Daboll wants to do with him at this point, but aside from not taking any deep shots in this game, I thought Jones was all right. Like he has some good runs too. Even that play at the goal line, he ran over 2 guys to get in the end zone. It was kind of reminiscent of what happened in Dallas a few years ago. Of course, he got a concussion on that play, but just taking on defenders and somehow getting into the end zone. It was a very impressive play, and Jones had a couple of keepers, had that one in the first quarter where he ran for like 15, 20 yards. So I would say Jones was all right today. It wasn't really that bad. This is not a game where you're going to bench him, obviously. Now, if they go to Germany and lose to the Panthers next week, maybe you pull the plug. I mean, we'll see. But this is not the game where I'm like, oh, it's all Daniel Jones' fault. Like, no, the quarterback play obviously could have been better, but it's like he was not the sole reason they lost. I think if the defense played better, they probably win this game. But I'd also be a fool to sit here and say better quarterback play would not help this team. It absolutely would. Like, if you switched to quarterbacks today, the Giants probably win this game by, I don't know, 10 or something. Like the run game for the Giants, it wasn't that bad. They weren't having too many big runs. The longest run was the one I talked about, the Daniel Jones 24-yarder. I think that was the first drive of the game. But even Slayton had the 11-yard run. That was a cool play, by the way. Like a really interesting formation. You had Slayton come from like the slot. You had Jones with a fake pitch to the running back, and then he hands it off to Slayton. Almost scored a touchdown on that play. And then he got like helicoptered at the goal line. But actually, no, that was a different play. But still, he almost scored. Tyrone Tracy's longest run on 16 carries was 10 yards, so that wasn't too impressive. But he was all right. He had 4.1 yards per carry, 16 carries, 66 yards. Singletary was 7 carries for 33 yards, 4.7 per carry, 15 yards was his longest. And that's something the Giants had last week versus the Steelers. Like, they had the big explosive runs. Of course, Tracy had the 45-yard touchdown. They didn't have that in this game, and that was kind of a problem. The Giants really had a problem creating any sort of big play in this game, whether it was via the run or the pass. Receiving wise, I mean, Neighbors had a game similar to last week, like a pretty good reception total, but not a lot of yards, only 6.6 yards per reception, 9 receptions for 59 yards, 11 targets, so good target share in the offense, but not that impressive of a game. And I feel like Neighbors, it really just came in chunks. Like, he would have maybe like 2 drives in this game where he must have had like 7 of his 9 catches. Like, I feel like it just all came at once. Theo Johnson had a good and a bad game. He had the touchdown, of course. He had another nice catch on a crosser, but he also had that one drop, and he might have had another drop as well. Or a ball he should have caught. I don't want to call it a drop, but a play where it's like, all right, you probably should have caught it. Darius Slayton, I mean, 3 catches, 49 yards. He also left this game with a concussion, Slayton, so we'll have to see how he does with the whole protocol. Obviously, Tracy, he was able to clear it in like 5 days, so it's not the norm, though. So we'll see if he's out there versus the Panthers. And, I mean, Chris Manhertz, of all people, scored a touchdown. One of those I formation plays. Linebacker was cheating too much towards the goal line, and Manhertz was able to slip into the right corner of the end zone. He caught a nice pass, honestly. It was a good pass by Jones. He put it in the right spot. He might have waited like a second too long, honestly, but still. It was a good catch, and justice was served because Manhertz had a touchdown last week versus Pittsburgh. It was on national TV. It would have been nicer, island game, but that was called back. I forget why. It might have been like an offensive pass interference, which that once again hurt the Giants in this game, obviously. I'll talk about that in a second. But Manhertz, who had a touchdown taken off the board last week, scores this week. Good to see. That was his only catch, obviously. One catch for 2 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson. So he's a guy who had a touchdown taken away. They had one of those plays where you had Wan'Dale in the slot, Slayton outside. Slayton tries to run like a slant and pretty much sets a pick on Wan'Dale's guy. Wan'Dale just runs like a quick out, has a wide open touchdown. And a lot of times when you see that, they're going to throw a flag because something like that happened. But then you'll see times, and I saw this a week ago or 2 weeks ago with George Kittle when they played the Cowboys, the Niners versus Cowboys game, where it was a similar situation. They threw the flag for like an offensive pass interference or a pick, and then they picked the flag up. So like sometimes they'll call it, sometimes they won't. I do believe if you're within a yard of the line of scrimmage, you're allowed to make contact with a defender. But if you're beyond that, which Slayton was, then you know, that should be called back, which I just think, though, in that situation, I don't think it was that much of a penalty. Like, I don't think I would have thrown the flag personally. And that was a big play in the game. You know, it's like the Giants basically lost 4 points on that. The Giants ended up losing this game by 5 points. So that could have been a difference, of course, but just annoying. I mean, I guess the players have to execute that better, but if I was the ref, I don't think I'm throwing that flag, so that kind of sucked to see. For the Giants defense, I mean, you had guys that showed out, but for the most part, a lot of disappointing performances in this game. I feel like you had Cordell Flott with the pass interference in the first half of the game. The pass rush was pretty invisible, especially in like the first half of the game, but really not much pressure on Daniels, who was not sacked once in this game. I felt like, you know, Daniels, of course, does a great job of getting away from pass rushers, but for a lot of the game, the pass rush was not there. So this might have been one of those games where they really missed Kayvon Thibodeau. And as I mentioned, like, the Commanders have decent tackles. They have that rookie left tackle. I think it's Brandon Coleman. You have Wiley, the veteran right tackle, who's a pretty decent right tackle. But it's not like these are all pro level offensive tackles. So I felt like this was a game where you could have maybe had some type of pass rush, but unfortunately that was not the case. I felt like guys like Nubin, Drew Phillips, like they had down games. Of course, they're rookies, but I mentioned Nubin had the missed tackle on, that was Eckler on the crosser, fourth quarter. And then there was the play, I think it was the big play to Zaccheaus, which was like one of the final throws that Daniels had, where I could be wrong about this, so I don't want to like just sit here and be like, oh, Nubin, you suck. But like, I'm pretty sure it was zone defense. I couldn't see from like the broadcast angle like whose responsibility that was, but Zaccheaus got wide open, like no one within 20 yards of him. So you're sitting there like, all right, well, someone effed up here. And I think the one linebacker that was in his zone was McFadden, and then the other that was supposed to be behind him, which is where Zaccheaus was, I'm pretty sure that was Tyler Nubin. So I could be wrong. We'll have to watch like the end zone angle or the all 22 and see what happened there, but it could have been Nubin. And for Drew Phillips, like Drew Phillips had a couple of big missed tackles in this game. There was the one, it was mid-third quarter. He came off the corner blitz, or like a slot corner blitz, and he had a shot to get Daniels, and he like jumped. I guess he was trying to like knock down a potential throw. And then Daniels tucks it and runs. I think that's what happened there. And actually, yeah, that was the play where Daniels had like the fake slide. He tried to pull that Kenny Pickett play back from a few years ago at Pitt. But so he tried the fake slide, didn't really work out too well. So on that play, though, Drew Phillips could have had a sack if he just stayed on his feet. And there was a Drew Phillips play. This is before halftime. There was a 3rd and 18 or something. I don't even know who caught this ball for the Commanders. I'm trying to think of who it was. I feel like it was a running back. It might have been McNichols. I'm trying to think. Did McNichols have a catch in this game, or am I just lying? McNichols he had no catches. So who the hell was it? It wasn't Sanat. It might have been Zaccheaus, honestly. No, Noah Brown. I think that's not Noah Brown. It was Diami Brown, I'm pretty sure. He caught the 24-yard ball or whatever right before halftime. It was like a simple not a simple tackle, but he was one-on-one basically with Drew Phillips, a tackle you have to make, and he had the boundary next to him too, so it's like just use that to your advantage. And unfortunately, he just was not able to wrap up, and who I think was Noah Brown picked up the first down. And then that led to the throw to McLaurin right before halftime when Deonte Banks lit up that touchdown on that slant and go route. So just a lot of defensive mistakes, and the pass rush once again not there. The running attack for the Commanders, it wasn't that great. You had the best running back for the Commanders was out, Brian Robinson, which I was not really expecting. But Chris Rodriguez came in. He had pretty good numbers, very close to a touchdown at the end, but 11 carries for 52 yards. McNichols was not great on the ground, 2.5 per carry on 8 carries. Eckler, 3.8 yards per carry, did have the touchdown. On that touchdown play, I forget who the offensive lineman was. Maybe it was Biotish, it might have been Allergetti. But whoever it was really took Dexter Lawrence out of that play, and it was like basically a one-on-one with Okereke and Eckler at the goal line. Eckler had the momentum, and he got in the end zone. Just barely, but he got in. So the Giants defense could have played better, absolutely. I do want to go through my notes and see if I'm missing any plays, but I kind of went over like the big ones. McLaurin had another touchdown, obviously, the first one of the game. That was against Deonte Banks. It was similar to what happened to him in the game versus the Browns when Amari Cooper, the former Brown, he scored a touchdown, like a similar situation, similar play, just like kind of runs like a delayed slant and scores a touchdown. So I feel like I saw a tweet today that Deonte Banks in 9 games has allowed 6 touchdowns this year, which is like, it's too many, it's just crazy. So I don't want to say he's a bust, but it's not looking great. I was really defending Deonte Banks the first couple weeks of the year, thinking like, all right, he's sticking with his guy. He just has to turn his head around and play the ball. Now he's not even sticking with his guy. It's like it's getting worse. So I feel like we wanted to see improvements, but it's getting worse with Deonte Banks. So a first-round pick from a couple of years ago, it's not looking great right now. The Giants did catch a break with Frankie Louvu jumping off sides. A really dumb play for a veteran player at this point. It was a 3rd and 5. The first quarter was about to expire, and the Giants were clearly just trying to get them off sides. And Frankie Louvu, once again, been around for probably, 5, 6, 7 years. He jumps off sides, and they get it was a 3rd and inches at that point after that, so they ended up getting the first down. So they benefited there. I forgot to mention the Manhertz touchdown, the play-action one. That was Daniel Jones' first touchdown throw at MetLife in 672 days. I believe that was from the Colts game in 2022. I could be wrong, but I think it's been that long, so that's pretty crazy. The Commanders went for a 4th and 1 on the Giants' 12-yard line. They ran pretty much a Jayden Daniels rollout. He had a running back in the flat as one of his options, and nobody was really accounting for Daniels taking off, and he did. So he picked up the first down pretty easily. Once again, he makes things look so easy. I'm not trying to glaze once again, but he looks good, Jayden Daniels. I wrote Drew Phillips' bad tackling on Diami Brown, so I guess it was Diami Brown I was talking about. And then on the McLaurin slant and go touchdown, it was such a bad situation. I mean, there was 6 seconds left in the half, and the Commanders had no timeouts. And they were 15-ish yards away. I want to see how long that touchdown was exactly, but the fact was it was 18 yards. Yeah, so 18-yard touchdown, and there was 11 seconds left when the ball was snapped. They had to get in the end zone. There should be no touchdown given up in that situation unless it was a crazy throw. And not to say it wasn't a good throw, but it just looked too easy for that situation where you have no timeouts left, 18 yards. The only thing you had to guard was the end zone, and you couldn't do it. That was embarrassing. The Giants had some more controversial, 2-point conversion stuff going on. So it was one of those things where they were down 14, tried going for 2. It didn't work. On one of the plays, Jones tried to take off and run. He kind of bobbled it and fell. And then on the other one, there was the one where Jones bobbled it and fell a yard short, and there was the one where he was backpedaling and threw it away. And I forget which one was which now, but still, I understand the analytics of it. I really do. Basically, if you go for 2, you're supposed to get it around 50% of the time. So I think the analytics people figured if you went for 2 twice, you're bound to get it at least once. And therefore, 2 extra points would equal 1 2-point conversion, and therefore you'd make out in the end. But there's always the chance that you pick up both 2-point conversions, or at least get the first one. And if you get the first 2-point conversion, you're all of a sudden down by 6. And then you could win the game with an extra point on your next touchdown. So, it's kind of tricky, but I understand where people are coming from with that. And truthfully, I don't mind it. I really don't. I mean, I try to be fair about everything. I'm not that much of an analytics nerd myself, but I get where people are coming from with it. I think the problem was the play calls. On one of those plays, you had, I think it was Jalen Hyatt on the near side of the screen, and you had Neighbors on the top. Those guys ran like a fade. And then you had Wandale running like a quick out. Maybe it was like one of those option plays he could have went in or out, and just nothing was there. So it's all right, the play calling was not great. You have to have better 2-point conversion calls than that. They work on this shit in practice. That was your best call. Hey, fade, option, choice route, and that's it. That's your most creative play call. So that's a coaching thing right there. Basically, the Commanders are a better team, and that just is what it is. I mean, it's been weird. It's weird to say that because my entire life as a football fan, it's been hard to admit that whether it was the other iteration of that team name or the football team or the Commanders, I've never had that franchise be better than the Giants, really. They had the 1 year of RG3, but even in that year, the Giants, I think, were coming off their Super Bowl, the second one, or technically the fourth one, second in my life. So to sit here and be like, yeah, the Commanders got it right, and we're still looking for answers, it sucks to say that, but it's true. They're 7-2, and the Giants are 2-7. The Commanders, they're an example of a team that you can really change a lot of shit in one offseason. You have to get the quarterback, of course, but they got the new owner, which unfortunately the Giants can't do that, but they got the new owner. They got the new GM, which is the GM I wanted, which it hurts to say. I really wanted Adam Peters on the Giants for a long time, but it didn't happen. And it hurts more because he was literally a finalist for the Giants job. It was Adam Peters versus Joe Schoen. The Giants took Joe Schoen. I was pretty disappointed by that, but I want to sit here and believe in Joe Schoen, but as time goes on, it's I don't know if I'm seeing what he's trying to cook here, so I don't know. But then they get Dan Quinn at head coach. I've never been a big Dan Quinn guy, but his defenses in Dallas did do pretty well, and they're clearly missing him right now defensively. I mean, I don't know what the hell Mike Zimmer's doing over there, but they do miss him. And then they got the quarterback right. They made their free agent signings. They got Wagner, they got Louvu, they got Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong. They got a bunch of good defenders in free agency. They got Austin Eckler. They got Noah Brown from the Texans, so they got their field stretcher. They got their third down back, their change of pace back. And then the offensive line, they kind of put it together pretty nicely as well. You had Sam Cosmi already. He's a good guard. He was a tackle, now a guard. You had Wiley, and then you sign Allergetti, you sign Biotish from the Cowboys, and you have this rookie left tackle now, and somehow that shit works. Cliff Kingsbury, say what you want about him as a head coach in Arizona, but so far, Kingsbury's offense has been really good. Once again, it started out pretty bad the first 2 weeks, but ever since then, it's this guy's been one of the better play callers in football. So it's been a good fit for them, and I sit here kind of jealous of their situation. Well, not kind of. I'm very jealous of their situation, and they have a good thing going. And the Commanders, unless they collapse, have a good chance to make the playoffs. I want to see their schedule to see if they will collapse. I mean, they have the Steelers, Eagles, Cowboys. They should beat Tennessee, should beat the Saints. Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. So, there are some tough matchups here, but a couple of games they should definitely win for sure. So, if they get to 10 wins, they probably should win this division. I mean, the Eagles, I don't know about the Eagles. I saw their game today. They were up 22-0. They let the Jaguars back in the game on 2 defensive scores. I mean, Trevor Lawrence couldn't do anything. And they still almost lost the game, kind of. So I was a little, I forget it. I think I picked Jacksonville in the spread, so I kind of hoped they covered, but I don't know if they did in the end. The Eagles won by 5. In Philadelphia, they could have went up by 8. They missed a field goal. So, the Jaguars had a real chance to come down and win that game. So that was kind of crazy. And then Dallas, I think Dallas is done. Dak Prescott hurts his hamstring today. He missed pretty much the entire second half of the game. And they're 3-5, and they're just not great right now. I mean, Dallas is just a below-average football team. I have to tell it how it is. So they're not Giants bad, but they're not that good. So it's you have the Commanders, you have the Eagles, you have a giant gap, you have the Cowboys, and probably another giant gap, then you have the Giants. And unfortunately for this Giants team, they can't get it right. And once again, that's why I want them to lose these games and try and get a quarterback. And if they hypothetically got Cam Ward or somebody, Shador, anybody, and that guy becomes a stud, that can really change this entire team around. I do think, it's usually more than you're just a quarterback away, but sometimes it's not. I don't think this Giants team is that horrendous. Of course, when they miss Andrew Thomas, their offense gets pretty bad. I'm surprised they scored 22 today without him. But you do have enough players, I feel like, to make things happen. You have a pretty good running game now with Tracy breaking out. You have Neighbors, who honestly might be a top 10 receiver in football. You have Wandale's a good slot receiver. Slayton's a fine wide receiver, 3, 2. Not a 2, I would say he's more of a 3, but he's fine. You have Hyatt, who should be able to make plays but hasn't. Theo Johnson, a lot of potential there. I like him, so hopefully he comes around. But yeah, it's not that bad of an offense. I just feel like it's been disappointing, and I hope with the right quarterback they can fix a lot of these issues. And I'm sure most of you saw this already, but if you did not see the Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle play, you have to watch it. I've been watching the Red Zone for probably like a decade straight, maybe more at this point, so I see like everything. I have never seen this happen before. Saquon Barkley, first he makes a guy miss on a spin. It was a receiving play, so he catches the ball in the flat, makes a guy miss on a spin, like a clean break too. He just didn't even touch him. It was nasty. Then to make it even better, he somehow turns his body around to the defense and jumps up backwards and hurdles a defender facing the wrong way. Like, I've never seen that before. It was pretty insane. It was one of those things where, like, you got up. I didn't literally get up out of my seat, but I kind of got to the edge of my seat. Like, what did I just see here? Like, was this real? So that was pretty insane. But yeah, I don't miss Saquon. I feel like it was time to have a divorce there. If he was still a Giant, it probably would not be going as well for him. So is what it is. And the Giants clearly did not want him back either. And it's funny, I saw someone tweet this today. I wish I could give credit because it's true. But no one gives the Tennessee Titans shit for letting Derrick Henry leave. But when it comes to the Giants, it's like, oh, how'd you let Saquon leave the building? But you see what Derrick Henry's doing now. He's probably having a better year than Saquon. Yet you don't have people saying oh, the Titans are so stupid for letting Derrick Henry go. Derrick Henry's probably 3 years older. But I just don't care when it comes to his age, because it's like he invests so much money into his body, kind of like LeBron does. I just don't care. With Derrick Henry, the whole running back hitting the age of 30 thing did not bother me. That's why I wanted him so badly in fantasy football. I have him on 2 of my 4 teams, thank God, but he's been so good. So when it comes to guys who take care of their body like that, it doesn't bother me. Saquon's another guy who takes care of himself. But in terms for the Giants, it was time to move on. And hopefully when this season's over, or maybe even 2 weeks from now during the bye week, we will also reach a point where it's time to move on from number 8, because I've been over that for a long time. So I hope it gets there. We'll see what happens next week in Germany. I will have a preview for that game. I'm going to try and get it out earlier because I don't want to upload it Saturday afternoon, because they do play Sunday morning. So I'll try to get it out Thursday or Friday. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Giants are now 2-7, so let's hope for that top pick, and I'll talk to you guys next time.